In a quiet, unassuming corner of the bustling city, tucked between towering skyscrapers and busy streets, there stands a community center with an open door and a welcoming heart. For years, this place has been a sanctuary, a home away from home, for countless people seeking connection, comfort, and a sense of belonging. This sense of warmth and resilience that radiates from the center is not accidental. It is the result of years of dedication, largely thanks to one man, Marcus Taylor. Marcus is a tall, dignified black man in his 70s, with a presence that exudes calm wisdom. His back is slightly bent from the years of work he's put in, both in life and at this very center. Yet he carries himself with quiet pride. His dark eyes, framed by wrinkles etched deep from both laughter and hardship, are warm and kind. Each line tells a story, a testament to the experiences that have shaped him. For Marcus, the community center is not just a building, it's a symbol of resilience, a place that represents his life's work and his commitment to unity. Since its founding over 3 decades ago, Marcus has been a fixture at the center. It was initially a small, humble project, a dream he had fostered in his heart for years as he saw neighbors, friends, and even strangers struggle to find a place where they could come together and feel seen. The center began as a small room in a rented space, but it quickly grew, both in size and importance. Marcus poured his heart into this place, advocating for funding, organizing events, and dedicating countless hours to turn it into the bustling hub it is today. Over time, the center became a safe haven for people from all walks of life, young and old, newcomers and regulars, people of all races and backgrounds. Though Marcus was instrumental in building the center, he isn't the official owner. That role belongs to Emma, a young woman with a sharp mind and a compassionate heart. Emma took over the administrative responsibilities several years ago when Marcus felt the weight of his age beginning to slow him down. She had grown up attending events and programs at the center, and Marcus had been a mentor to her throughout her life, teaching her not only the intricacies of managing a community space, but also the importance of empathy, patience, and unwavering integrity. To Emma, Marcus isn't just an advisor. He is a beloved elder, a guide, and a source of strength in times of doubt. Today, the community center is alive with activity, with people moving in and out, voices mingling in laughter and conversation, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. This isn't just any ordinary day, it's the day of the annual Unity Gathering, a special event that Marcus helped establish to celebrate the diversity and strength of the community. This day is always filled with music, food, and stories shared by people of all ages and backgrounds. It's a day that, for Marcus, embodies everything he had hoped the center would represent. A tapestry of people from different lives, woven together by shared humanity and compassion. As Marcus makes his way to the center, he feels a familiar warmth building within him. He has prepared for this day meticulously, speaking to volunteers, arranging the activities, and ensuring that each person who enters the center will feel like they belong. His heart swells with pride as he watches people come together, children playing in the corner while their parents chat, seniors gathered in groups sharing stories of years gone by, and teenagers eagerly volunteering, inspired by the sense of purpose and community they find here. For Marcus, the Unity Gathering isn't just an event, it's a legacy. It's the manifestation of his lifelong belief that people can come together, that bridges can be built between the divides that society often creates, and he sees himself as a small yet essential part of that bridge, someone who has devoted his life to making others feel seen, heard, and valued. The center is bustling, but amid the crowd, Marcus finds a moment to reflect on the years that brought him here. He remembers his first days working to establish this place, the struggles he faced, the doors that were closed to him, and the people who doubted him. But through persistence and a deep-seated faith in the goodness of people, he succeeded in building this center. It stands now not just as a physical space, but as a testament to resilience and unity, a place where everyone is welcome, no matter their background, age, or circumstances. As he greets familiar faces and shakes hands with old friends, he takes a moment to scan the room for Emma. She is across the hall, overseeing a group of volunteers setting up tables and decorations. He catches her eye and she waves, a warm smile lighting up her face. For Emma, today's gathering is also significant. She sees it as a way to honor Marcus's legacy and continue the work he has devoted his life to. She's committed to upholding his vision and ensuring that the center remains a place of acceptance and kindness. In this moment, Marcus feels a profound sense of fulfillment. This center, filled with laughter, warmth, and the harmony of people coming together, is everything he had envisioned. The sounds of community fill the air, the clinking of coffee cups, the soft hum of conversations, children's laughter, and the gentle chords of music playing from a corner speaker. It's the embodiment of his lifelong commitment to fostering a place of unity where differences are celebrated and connections are cherished. As he stands there, a man who has given so much of himself to others, Marcus realizes that this center and the people within it have also given him something invaluable in return: purpose, belonging, and the knowledge that he has made a meaningful impact. Today, as he prepares to join the celebration, he feels a renewed sense of gratitude for the journey that brought him here. It's more than just another day at the community center. It's a culmination of years of dedication, a testament to the power of community, and a day to embrace the legacy he's worked so tirelessly to create. Marcus entered the community center with a familiar warmth filling his heart, expecting the usual handshakes, smiles, and nods of recognition from both staff and visitors. However, as he approached the entrance to the main event area, he noticed a different energy. Gone was the usual easygoing atmosphere. Instead, there was a new, unfamiliar presence managing the check-in desk. At the entrance stood Claire, a woman in her mid-50s with a no-nonsense expression that seemed carved into her face. Her posture was rigid, her gaze direct, and she wore an air of authority that could almost be intimidating. Marcus had heard of her appointment a few weeks ago. Emma had told him that Claire was hired to bring more structure and organization to the center, which had grown so much in recent years. Marcus had thought little of it at the time, trusting Emma's judgment. However, seeing Claire in action now stirred an uneasy feeling within him. As Marcus approached, Claire's sharp eyes followed him, and he offered her a warm smile. "Good afternoon," he greeted, his voice calm and friendly, radiating the kindness and familiarity that had become synonymous with his presence at the center. "Good afternoon, sir," Claire replied curtly, glancing at her clipboard. She immediately shifted her attention to the paper in her hands, without so much as a second glance in Marcus's direction. He noticed the unfamiliarity in her tone, which didn't carry the warmth or camaraderie he was used to from other staff. Brushing it off as mere formality, Marcus took a step forward toward the doors to the main hall, where the annual Unity Gathering was being held. But before he could enter, Claire raised a hand to stop him. "Excuse me," she said, her tone firm. "I need to see your invitation before you can proceed." Marcus blinked, slightly taken aback. "Oh," he said with a small laugh, assuming she was joking. "No need for that. I've been coming here for years. This is my second home." He gave her a friendly smile, hoping to dispel whatever stiffness he sensed. Claire, however, didn't budge. She didn't even crack a smile. "Rules are rules," she said flatly, staring at him with a steady gaze that held no trace of warmth or recognition. For a moment, Marcus was at a loss. He hadn't expected to encounter such formality, especially at an event he had helped plan for weeks. With a slight frown, he glanced around, hoping to spot Emma or any familiar face who might ease the situation. But the entrance area was relatively empty, with most attendees already inside. "Ma'am," he began, still in his calm, respectful tone, "I'm Marcus. I've been part of this center since it opened. I helped organize this event. I didn't think I'd need a formal invitation." Claire's expression didn't change. She simply pointed to the clipboard in her hand. "Everyone needs an invitation," she replied, her voice clipped. "If your name isn't on my list, I can't let you in." Marcus felt a tightness in his chest, an unfamiliar mix of surprise and discomfort. He had never needed a list to be part of the community center's events. His contributions and presence had always spoken for themselves. He had organized countless gatherings, volunteered on weekends, and dedicated resources to keep the center thriving. The thought of being treated like an outsider in the very place he had helped nurture was a sting he hadn't anticipated. Trying to remain calm, he adjusted his posture, hoping to communicate his role more clearly. "Claire, I'm not sure if you're familiar with my history here. I've been working with Emma in the community for years. I've been here since the beginning. I may not have an invitation on paper, but this center—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "It's my family." Claire's gaze hardened, her fingers tapping on the clipboard with impatience. "Mr. Marcus," she said as if reciting from a script, "the center has grown, and we have procedures in place now. If you don't have an invitation, I'm afraid I can't allow you access." He couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief. "But Emma knows I'm coming. I'm sure if we find her, she'll explain." "Ms. Emma's busy with the event inside," Claire interrupted, her voice unwavering. "I can't disturb her, and it wouldn't matter anyway because I have instructions to follow." Marcus swallowed hard. Claire's words felt impersonal, cold, and laced with a formality that stood in stark contrast to the openness that had always defined the community center. For decades, this place had been a refuge, a place where no one had to prove their belonging. Now standing before Claire, Marcus felt as though the walls that had once welcomed him were suddenly looming high, shutting him out. There was a long, heavy silence. Marcus looked at Claire, trying to find a flicker of understanding or compassion in her gaze. But all he saw was a rigid adherence to rules, a steadfast refusal to look beyond the surface. In that moment, he realized that her approach was not simply about following protocol, it was a dismissal, an implicit message that his history, his years of dedication, meant nothing in the face of a newly minted rulebook. The sting of rejection settled deep within him. It was more than just being turned away. It was the message behind it, the erasure of everything he had worked for and stood for within these walls. Claire wasn't simply denying him access. She was undermining his legacy, his role as a pillar of the community. With a soft, resigned sigh, Marcus took a step back. "I understand that you're following protocol," he said, his voice steady, though the warmth had drained from it. "But it saddens me to think that a place I've dedicated so much of my life to could forget me so quickly." He could see the slightest hint of discomfort flash across Claire's face, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. She kept her gaze on the clipboard, avoiding direct eye contact. "I'm sorry, sir," she replied, though her tone was anything but apologetic. "As I said, rules are rules." The words hung heavily in the air, thick with the unspoken meaning behind them. To Marcus, it was a clear sign that the place he had nurtured, the place he had poured his heart and soul into, had somehow lost sight of its purpose. He felt a bitter irony in the fact that a gathering meant to celebrate unity and community was now being guarded by walls of indifference and red tape. Marcus's shoulders slumped slightly, the weight of this unexpected exclusion settling on him. He had fought many battles in his life, faced countless challenges, and stood up against injustice time and again. But here, in a place he had helped build, he felt an ache that was different, deeper, more personal. Turning slowly, Marcus looked back at the bustling center. He could hear the faint sounds of laughter and music from within, the sounds of a celebration he had dreamed of and worked so hard to make possible. The celebration he was now barred from attending. As he stood there, he noticed a few familiar faces passing by, some nodding to him, others offering polite greetings. They didn't know what was happening. To them, Marcus was as much a part of the center as the walls themselves. But Claire's presence loomed between him and them, an unseen barrier that prevented him from stepping back into the space he had called home for so long. Taking a deep breath, Marcus composed himself. He wouldn't let this incident define his legacy or taint the memories he had built within these walls. Yet as he walked away from the entrance, he couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, of having been pushed aside in the very place he had once fought to open to all. As Marcus took a few steps back from the entrance, bewildered and hurt by Claire's rejection, murmurs began to ripple through the crowd nearby. Many of the attendees had seen Marcus's interaction with Claire and were now exchanging glances, their expressions shifting from confusion to frustration. It was clear to everyone there that something was amiss. At the forefront of those watching was Lucy, an elderly Latina woman and one of Marcus's closest friends. Lucy had been a part of the community center since its early days, attending nearly every event and volunteering at many. She and Marcus shared a deep bond forged through years of shared dedication to the center's mission. To Lucy, Marcus was not only a friend, but a symbol of the community's resilience and compassion. Seeing him treated this way ignited a spark of anger within her. Without hesitation, Lucy moved forward, her usually kind face set with a rare, steely determination. She called out to Claire, her voice steady, yet filled with a conviction that drew the attention of those around her. "Excuse me," she said, her voice clear and unwavering as she stepped closer to Claire. "I couldn't help but notice what just happened here." She looked Claire in the eye, her gaze unyielding. "Marcus doesn't need an invitation. He built this place alongside Emma and many of us. He deserves to be here as much as anyone. More than most of us, in fact." Claire, taken aback, glanced down at her clipboard as if looking for some bureaucratic shield to hide behind. "Ma'am, I'm just following protocol," she responded, her voice clipped. "Everyone needs an invitation, and that includes Mr. Marcus." Lucy's eyes flashed. "Protocol," she repeated, her voice growing sharper. "Let me tell you something about protocol. Protocol is for strangers, for people who don't know each other. Marcus is no stranger here. He's family, and if there's any rule that doesn't recognize that, maybe that rule should be reconsidered." Around them, people began to nod in agreement, murmurs of support rising as Lucy spoke. Her words carried the weight of history, of years spent working side by side with Marcus, building this community. To the onlookers, her defense was not just for Marcus, but for everything the center represented. Meanwhile, Mina, a young volunteer who had only recently joined the center, watched the scene unfold with a growing sense of indignation. Though she didn't have the years of history with Marcus that others like Lucy did, Mina had quickly come to admire him. He had a way of making everyone feel welcome, always greeting new faces with warmth and encouragement. Mina looked up to him and had learned a great deal under his quiet guidance. The injustice she witnessed felt deeply wrong to her, stirring a fierce sense of loyalty. With a quick glance around, Mina discreetly pulled out her phone, her hands trembling slightly as she began recording. She knew the power of social media and wanted to document this moment, not to humiliate anyone, but to shed light on a situation that felt inherently unfair. As she recorded, Mina whispered to a friend nearby, "This isn't right. Marcus has done so much for this place, and now they're treating him like he's a stranger?" Her friend nodded solemnly, mirroring Mina's frustration. "People need to know about this," Mina continued, "so they can see how someone who's given so much is being shut out." With a few swift taps, she posted the video to her social media page, adding a caption that read, "When someone dedicates their life to building a community, they deserve more than to be turned away by their own." Within moments, the video began to gather attention, with comments pouring in from friends and acquaintances who knew Marcus or who had been impacted by his work at the center. A little further back in the room, Paul stood, watching the unfolding confrontation with a conflicted expression. As the center's longtime manager, Paul had worked closely with Marcus for years. He respected Marcus deeply, viewing him as not only a mentor, but also a friend. Paul knew firsthand how much Marcus had poured into the community center, sacrificing his time, energy, and resources to make it a place of inclusivity and warmth. Yet as much as he admired Marcus, Paul felt caught between his loyalty and his professional responsibilities. He understood that Claire had been brought on to bring more structure and enforce protocols, especially as the center grew and attracted more people. Emma, too, had expressed concerns about managing the influx of visitors, and Paul knew she had hoped Claire's firm approach would help streamline operations. But watching Claire dismiss Marcus in such a callous manner stirred something uncomfortable in Paul. This wasn't just a matter of protocol, this was a matter of respect. Paul felt the tension within himself, a push and pull between duty and justice, as he weighed the consequences of intervening. He wanted to support Claire, who was doing her job as instructed, but the image of Marcus, visibly hurt and humiliated, lingered in his mind. The voices around him grew louder, with community members expressing their support for Marcus. Some stepped closer to him, patting him on the back, offering words of encouragement, while others directed their frustration toward Claire. Lucy continued to press her point, her voice rising as she recounted Marcus's contributions to anyone who would listen. And Mina's video continued to circulate online, gathering support from people both inside and outside the community. Finally, unable to ignore the sense of injustice gnawing at him, Paul took a deep breath and approached Claire. "Claire," he began, keeping his tone calm but resolute, "I understand that you're following protocol, but maybe there's room for some flexibility here. Marcus isn't just another guest. He's been here since day one. He's part of this center's foundation." Claire frowned, tightening her grip on her clipboard. "Paul, you know as well as I do that we have rules for a reason. If we start making exceptions, where does it end?" Paul met her gaze, his own expression firm. "I get it, Claire. Rules are important, but so is respect. We're not a business, we're a community. Marcus deserves to be treated with the respect he's earned." For a moment there was silence as the two stared at each other, their differing perspectives clashing in the space between them. Around them the crowd watched, sensing the tension, waiting to see if Paul's words would make a difference. Reluctantly, Claire glanced over at Marcus, then back at Paul. "I'll talk to Emma," she muttered, her tone softening just slightly. "But for now, I'm doing what I was hired to do." Paul nodded, recognizing the small concession as a step in the right direction. "Thank you, Claire," he said quietly, hoping that Emma would soon arrive to help resolve the situation. As he turned back to Marcus, Paul placed a reassuring hand on his friend's shoulder. "Don't worry, Marcus," he said softly. "We'll get this sorted out. You belong here." Marcus offered a small, grateful smile, though a shadow of sadness lingered in his eyes. The experience had left a mark, a reminder that even within a place he had dedicated himself to, there were still obstacles to overcome, prejudices to challenge, and a legacy to defend. Standing just outside the entrance to the main hall, Marcus took a deep, steadying breath. The air felt thick with tension and uncertainty, but he refused to let his emotions overwhelm him. Though his heart ached from the sting of rejection, he forced himself to stay composed, drawing on the strength that had carried him through decades of hardship and challenges. For Marcus, this moment was not just about entering an event or securing a spot in a gathering. It was about something far deeper, a question of belonging, of respect, and of the legacy he had worked tirelessly to build. As he looked at Claire, who stood firm with her clipboard and unwavering expression, he felt an old, familiar pain stirring within him, a pain rooted in the years of struggle he had faced simply because of who he was. Memories began to surface, unbidden yet vivid. He remembered his younger years, a time when he had been eager and hopeful, but had faced doors that were firmly closed, barriers that seemed immovable. He recalled the countless times he had been dismissed, underestimated, even openly disrespected. Yet each slight, each setback, had only made him more determined to build a place where no one would feel the same exclusion he had felt, where everyone, regardless of their background, would find acceptance and warmth. This community center was meant to be that place. It was the culmination of his dreams and his determination to create a sanctuary of unity and compassion. And now to be denied entry, to be told implicitly that he didn't belong, was an insult not only to him, but to the very values that this center was supposed to uphold. Marcus took another breath, allowing himself a moment to process the wave of emotions running through him. He felt the weight of the eyes around him, the supportive gazes of his friends and community members who had stood by him and believed in his vision. He knew he wasn't alone in this fight, but he also knew that in this moment, he had to stand up not only for himself, but for everyone who had ever felt pushed aside, unappreciated, or invisible. Steeling himself, Marcus turned his gaze back to Claire. He spoke, his voice calm, yet filled with a quiet strength that commanded attention. "Claire," he began, "I understand that you have a job to do. I respect that rules are important, but I also know that this center wasn't built on rules alone. It was built on the hearts of people who believed in something greater, people who poured their time, their energy, and sometimes their very souls into making this place what it is." His words hung in the air, and a hush fell over those who had gathered around to watch. Marcus's tone was steady, yet each word carried the weight of years of dedication, sacrifice, and unyielding perseverance. He continued, his gaze unwavering as he addressed Claire directly. "I've been here since day one," he said, his voice softening, though it remained resolute. "I was here before there was a community center, when all we had was an idea and a hope that we could create something meaningful. I was here when we had to fight for funding, when we had to convince people that this place mattered. And I'm still here today, not because I want recognition or praise, but because I believe in what this center stands for." He paused, letting his words sink in. Claire shifted slightly, her gaze flickering as though Marcus's words had struck a chord, yet her expression remained guarded, a mask of professionalism that refused to yield. "This center exists because of people like me, people who believed in it when it was nothing more than an empty building with a dream. And it exists for people who may feel they have nowhere else to go, people who need a place where they're valued for who they are, not for what they bring in or how they fit into a system." Marcus felt a swell of emotion rise within him, but he held his ground, his posture steady, his eyes unwavering. He was no longer the young man who had once felt powerless in the face of rejection. He had learned, through years of experience, that his voice mattered, that he could speak up even when others tried to silence him. "Rules have their place," he continued, his voice carrying a firm but gentle authority, "but they should never come before people. And this place was never meant to be about rules. It was meant to be about community, about connection, about recognizing each person's worth." A ripple of agreement ran through the crowd, murmurs of support and nods of solidarity from those who had gathered to listen. Marcus felt their presence behind him, their belief in him, and it strengthened his resolve. He looked at Claire, hoping to see a glimmer of understanding, a sign that his words had reached her. For a brief moment, he thought he saw a flicker of hesitation in her expression, and a softening around her eyes. But then, just as quickly, her face hardened once more, her shoulders stiffening as she clutched her clipboard a little tighter. She met his gaze, her own eyes steely and unreadable. "I appreciate everything you've done here, Mr. Marcus," she replied, her voice cool and detached. "But my role is to ensure that this event runs smoothly, and that means following protocol. Everyone needs an invitation, no exceptions." Her words were a slap in the face, cold and impersonal. Marcus felt a pang of disappointment, not only in her response but in the realization that, to Claire, he was nothing more than another attendee, another name to be checked off a list. The legacy he had built, the years he had invested, seemed to mean nothing in the face of her rigid adherence to protocol. But he didn't let his composure falter. Instead, he straightened his shoulders, lifting his chin with quiet dignity. "Very well," he said, his tone steady. "If following protocol means excluding the very people who helped build this center, then perhaps it's time to rethink the protocols." Claire's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. The silence between them was heavy, charged with the unspoken clash of values, of history and duty, of respect and rigidity. Around them, the crowd watched in tense anticipation, their loyalty clearly with Marcus, their eyes filled with quiet admiration for his strength and resolve. As Marcus turned away, he felt a mix of frustration and sadness, but also a renewed sense of purpose. He had stood his ground, spoken his truth, and reminded everyone, including himself, of the values that had guided him for so long. He knew that his journey wasn't over, that there were still battles to fight, still voices to be heard, and as he walked away from the entrance, a quiet determination settled within him. This was his community, his legacy, and he would not let it be defined by cold rules and indifference. He would continue to fight, not just for himself, but for everyone who believed in the spirit of unity, compassion, and respect. Emma had been in the back of the community center, preparing for the Unity gathering, when she received a hurried message from one of the volunteers. The young woman's voice was tense as she explained the incident with Marcus at the entrance, and Claire's refusal to let him in without an invitation. Emma felt a jolt of disbelief, quickly followed by a surge of frustration and concern. She had known Marcus for most of her life. He was her mentor, her guide, the steady force that had shaped not only her career but her character. The idea that someone would deny him entry to an event he had essentially built from the ground up felt profoundly wrong. Without a moment's hesitation, Emma excused herself from her current duties and made her way to the entrance. As she walked through the familiar halls, she felt a tightening in her chest. She had always trusted Claire's professionalism, but this was not merely a matter of enforcing rules. It was a question of values, of understanding what the community center stood for and who had made it possible. Emma quickened her pace, determined to address the situation directly. As she approached the main entrance, Emma took in the scene before her. She saw Claire standing rigidly with her clipboard, a frown creasing her forehead, her posture exuding authority, but lacking the warmth that defined the center's ethos. A small crowd had gathered around, their expressions ranging from shock to indignation, their attention fixed on Marcus, who was standing tall and composed, though Emma could sense the disappointment in his eyes. Taking a deep breath, Emma stepped forward. "Marcus!" she called out, her voice carrying a mix of empathy and resolve. As soon as he saw her, Marcus's face softened slightly, and a subtle but visible relief washed over him. She approached him with purpose, her expression one of apology and respect. "I'm so sorry, Marcus," Emma began, loud enough for everyone around to hear. "This shouldn't have happened." She placed a hand on his arm, a gesture of both reassurance and respect. "You have always been the heart and soul of this center. Without you, this place wouldn't even exist." Emma's words were not just for Marcus, but for everyone present, including Claire. She wanted them all to understand the importance of Marcus's role, the legacy he had created, and the profound impact he had on the center. Her voice was steady, her tone imbued with both firmness and compassion, underscoring the gratitude she felt for everything Marcus had done. Claire's expression shifted slightly, but she kept her posture firm, her grip on her clipboard tightening. Emma turned to her, her gaze resolute. "Claire," she said, addressing the supervisor directly, "Marcus is not merely a guest at this event. He is a cornerstone of our community. His contributions and dedication are the very foundation of what this center stands for." There was a pause as Emma's words sank in, the crowd around them listening intently. Emma continued, her voice unwavering. "It's essential to have guidelines, and I appreciate that you're trying to keep things organized," she acknowledged. "But there are times when rules need to be balanced with respect and understanding. Marcus is not just anyone walking through these doors. He has dedicated years of his life to building this place, to creating a safe and welcoming space for everyone." Claire's face flushed slightly, and she shifted uncomfortably, glancing down at her clipboard before meeting Emma's gaze. "Emma, I understand that Mr. Marcus is important to the center," she replied, her tone carefully measured. "But my job is to follow protocol and ensure that the event runs smoothly. I was only doing what I thought was necessary." Emma nodded, her expression softening, but her tone remaining resolute. "I appreciate your dedication, Claire, and I understand the need for structure. But the community center isn't a corporation. It's not about adhering strictly to policies. It's about people, about honoring those who have made sacrifices to bring us to where we are." She glanced around, addressing both Claire and the crowd that had gathered. "This place was built with the belief that everyone who walks through these doors deserves respect, a sense of belonging, and to be valued for who they are. Marcus embodies that belief. He has spent years helping others feel at home here. We can't lose sight of those values." Emma's words resonated deeply with the crowd, many of whom nodded in agreement. They knew Marcus not only as a community leader, but as a friend, a mentor, and a role model. He was a man who had given so much of himself to ensure that others would feel welcome and appreciated, and they felt his exclusion as a personal affront to the values they all held dear. Turning back to Marcus, Emma's eyes softened, filled with an unspoken apology. "Marcus, I am so sorry that you had to go through this today," she said, her voice steady, yet full of genuine remorse. "This center would be nothing without you, and I want you to know that we all recognize and appreciate everything you've done. Please come inside and join us. This event is as much a celebration of you as it is of our community." With a small, grateful smile, Marcus nodded. "Thank you, Emma," he replied quietly, his voice filled with the calm dignity that had always defined him. "I appreciate your words. They mean more than you know." The crowd shifted, opening up to allow Marcus to step forward, their expressions filled with admiration and respect. Emma turned once more to Claire, her voice softening but remaining firm. "Claire, I need you to understand that rules are important, yes, but they're not the only thing that matters here. This center was built on compassion, respect, and community, and I expect everyone who works here to embody those values." Claire nodded, her cheeks flushed, though her expression held a hint of defiance. "Understood," she said, her tone restrained. I'll do my best to consider that in the future." Emma gave her a small nod, a silent acknowledgement of the lesson that she hoped had been learned. "Thank you, Claire," she said before turning back to the gathering crowd. "Now let's get back to what this day is truly about. Celebrating our community and the people who make it strong." With that, Emma led Marcus into the main hall, her hand resting gently on his arm as they entered the bustling room together. The crowd around them began to disperse, many of them returning to the festivities, though the energy in the room was palpably different. People greeted Marcus warmly, shaking his hand, clapping him on the back, and expressing their gratitude for everything he had done. As they made their way through the crowd, Emma felt a profound sense of relief mixed with pride. She had always looked up to Marcus, had seen him as the epitome of strength, resilience, and kindness. To her, standing up for him in this moment was not just a duty, but an honor. She felt privileged to have the opportunity to protect his legacy and to reinforce the values that had guided him for so many years. The confrontation with Claire had left a mark, a reminder of the importance of staying true to the center's mission, even as it grew and changed. Emma knew that she would need to address this issue more formally, to ensure that everyone working at the center understood the values they were meant to uphold. But for now, she was simply grateful that Marcus's place in the community had been affirmed, and that he had received the recognition and respect he so richly deserved. As the festivities continued, Emma stayed close to Marcus, introducing him to newcomers, sharing stories of his contributions, and making sure that he knew just how valued he was. The incident with Claire was a stark reminder of the challenges that came with growth, but it also underscored the power of community, the importance of standing up for what was right, and the deep respect and love that bound them all together. As the celebration continued around them, Emma found herself troubled by the day's events. Though she had addressed the immediate issue by ensuring Marcus's inclusion, she couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper needed to change. The incident with Claire was more than a simple misunderstanding. It was a signal that, as the center grew, its values needed to be actively reinforced. Standing by Marcus's side, Emma felt a renewed sense of responsibility, not only to him but to everyone who looked to the center as a place of acceptance and unity. Determined to address the situation head-on, Emma excused herself from the main hall and sought out Paul, the longtime manager whose insights and level-headed approach she had come to rely on over the years. She found him near the office, speaking quietly with a few staff members who had also witnessed the incident. When Paul saw her approaching, he offered a small, understanding nod, as if he already knew what she was going to say. "Paul," Emma began, her tone resolute but calm, "I think we need to address what happened today. This can't just be brushed aside. Our staff needs to understand that what happened with Marcus isn't just an issue of protocol, it's a matter of respect and inclusivity." Paul nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I agree," he replied. "Today was a wake-up call. We've expanded a lot in the past few years, and maybe in trying to manage that growth, we've lost sight of some of the values that this place was built on. I think a meeting would be a good step forward." Emma felt a wave of relief at his support. Paul's influence among the staff was significant, and she knew that having him by her side would lend weight to the conversation they needed to have. "Thank you, Paul," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I'd like you to help me lead this meeting. Your perspective and your understanding of Marcus's contributions will make a difference." Together, they arranged an immediate staff meeting in a quieter area of the center. Emma wanted to address the issue while it was still fresh in everyone's minds, ensuring that the message would resonate and be taken seriously. As the staff gathered, murmurs of curiosity and apprehension filled the room. Some of them were unaware of the full details of the incident, while others had witnessed the interaction between Marcus and Claire and understood why this meeting was necessary. Emma waited until the room was silent before speaking, her voice calm but imbued with the firm resolve of a leader dedicated to her mission. "Thank you all for joining us on such short notice," she began, her gaze moving from one face to the next. "I know today's gathering is supposed to be a celebration, but something happened earlier that I feel needs to be addressed immediately. It's important that we, as a team, reflect on our actions and ensure that we're aligned with the values of this community center." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Earlier today, Marcus, one of our most dedicated and respected members, was denied entry to the main event. This wasn't simply a matter of following rules or enforcing protocol. It was a matter of respect and inclusivity. Marcus has been with us since the beginning, and his contributions have been invaluable. What happened today was not only disappointing, it was a failure to uphold the very principles we stand for. Her words were met with a somber silence. Many of the staff members glanced at each other, their expressions reflecting a mix of discomfort and reflection. In the back of the room, Claire stood with her arms crossed, her gaze fixed on the floor. Emma noticed her discomfort, but pressed on, knowing that this moment required directness and honesty. I want each of you to understand that while protocols and procedures are important, they should never overshadow the respect we owe to our community members. Emma continued, the reason this center was built, the reason we're all here, is to provide a safe, welcoming space for everyone. It's our duty to ensure that people feel valued and appreciated, not excluded or diminished. At this point, Emma turned her attention to Claire, addressing her with a gentle but firm tone. Claire, I know you were trying to do your job, and I appreciate your commitment to maintaining order. But I also need you to understand that our community center is more than just a set of rules. It's a place where we honor each person's contributions, especially those who have given so much of themselves to help us grow. Claire looked up, her face flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and defensiveness. I didn't mean any harm, she replied, her voice quiet but steady. I thought I was doing what was expected of me. Emma nodded, acknowledging her words. I understand, Claire, but sometimes our expectations go beyond just following procedures. They include understanding the spirit of this place, the reasons why we do what we do. Marcus is not just any member. He's a foundational part of this center. And I believe that an apology is owed, not only to Marcus, but to everyone who values what he represents. There was a pause as Claire processed Emma's words, the weight of the moment settling over her. Reluctantly, she looked toward Marcus, who was standing near the door, observing the scene with a calm, yet deeply serious expression. Taking a small step forward, Claire met his gaze, her face reflecting a mixture of remorse and discomfort. Mr. Marcus, she began, her voice barely above a whisper, but growing stronger with each word. I apologize for my actions earlier. I didn't fully understand your history with the center or the role you've played in building it. I was focused on the rules, but I see now that I should have considered the bigger picture. I'm sorry for any hurt I caused. Marcus inclined his head, acknowledging her words with a gracious nod. Thank you, Claire, he replied softly. I accept your apology. My hope is that we can all learn from this and continue to make this place a true community. Emma allowed the moment to settle before addressing the staff once more. This experience has shown me that we have an opportunity to grow, she said, her tone shifting from corrective to constructive. Starting next month, we will be implementing regular staff discussions, times where we can come together to reflect on our values, to share stories, and to better understand the history and contributions of our community members. These monthly discussions will be a chance for us to connect, to deepen our sense of empathy, and to remind ourselves of the mission that brought us all here. The room was silent as Emma's words sank in, the staff absorbing the new direction she was proposing. Paul, who had been standing quietly beside her, stepped forward, adding his voice to reinforce her message. I've been with this center for many years, and I've seen how it's grown, how it's become a place of refuge and unity. Paul began, his tone measured and sincere. But growth can sometimes make us lose sight of what matters. These discussions will be a chance for us to realign, to make sure that we're not just following procedures, but embodying the spirit of inclusion and respect. Let's use this experience to strengthen our commitment to those values. Emma glanced at Paul, gratitude evident in her eyes. His support lent credibility and depth to the initiative, and she could sense the positive shift in the room as staff members nodded thoughtfully, many of them visibly moved by the day's events and the promise of a renewed focus on community values. As the meeting came to a close, Emma addressed the group with a final, heartfelt message. Thank you all for being here and for being willing to reflect on this experience. I know it may have been uncomfortable, but growth often is. My hope is that together, we can make this center a place where every person feels seen, respected, and valued. That's our mission. Let's make it our reality. With that, she dismissed the staff, her heart filled with a sense of purpose and hope. As they dispersed, many approached Marcus, offering him words of gratitude and apologies for the incident. Marcus accepted each gesture with his usual grace, his steady presence reinforcing the quiet strength that had always been his hallmark. As dust settled over the city, Mina's video continued to gain traction online, faster than anyone could have anticipated. What began as a discreet recording of an unsettling moment had blossomed into a movement of solidarity. Within hours, the video had garnered thousands of views, with comments pouring in from people far and wide. Each reaction adding to the conversation around inclusivity, respect, and the role of community centers in promoting these values. The video captured the essence of the confrontation, from Marcus's calm dignity to Claire's rigid adherence to protocol, and ultimately Emma's heartfelt defense of Marcus. It became more than just a video. It was a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for one's values. As viewers watched, they were not only moved by Marcus's experience, but also felt compelled to share their own stories of discrimination, exclusion, and the yearning for acceptance. The comments section filled up rapidly, with people of all backgrounds expressing their support for Marcus and their disapproval of how he had been treated. Many remarked on the irony of someone so dedicated to fostering a welcoming environment being excluded from it, while others shared anecdotes about similar experiences they'd had, either at community centers, workplaces, or other public spaces. "Seeing Marcus treated this way is heartbreaking," wrote one commenter. "Community spaces should be the first places to value kindness and respect over cold rules." Another comment from a woman named Alicia read, "I've faced the same kind of exclusion before, and it's hard to explain just how painful it feels. Seeing Marcus's story gives me hope. Thank you, Marcus, for standing up for yourself, and for all of us who've been overlooked." The comments section became a platform for countless voices, each adding to a growing dialogue around the need for empathy, inclusivity, and understanding in spaces meant to serve the community. Stories emerged from every corner of the city, and even beyond, from people who had been marginalized, overlooked, or disregarded simply because they didn't fit someone's rigid expectations. To Marcus, the support was both overwhelming and profoundly moving. As word spread, friends and neighbors approached him, expressing their admiration for his courage. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, realizing that his experience was not unique, but part of a larger tapestry of struggles that many faced. His story had become a rallying cry for empathy, a symbol of resilience that resonated deeply with those who longed for understanding and acceptance. Social media, often criticized for its divisive nature, now became a tool of unity and empowerment. Under the hashtag #RespectOurElders, people shared stories, posted messages of encouragement, and called for accountability from community organizations to uphold the values they professed. The movement gathered momentum, its reach expanding as more people shared the video, drawing attention to the center's mission and the renewed commitment it had made to honor and uplift every member of the community. In response to the video's impact, Emma took to the center's social media account to make a public statement. She wrote, "To our beloved community, we acknowledge that yesterday's incident was not aligned with our values, and we deeply regret the hurt it caused. Marcus Taylor is not only a valued member, but a cornerstone of our center's history and mission. His story has highlighted the need for a renewed commitment to inclusivity, respect, and understanding. Moving forward, we are implementing monthly discussions to foster empathy among our staff and ensure that every person who enters our doors feels welcomed and valued. Thank you to everyone who has voiced their support. Together, we can make our community center a place of true unity and belonging." Emma's statement was met with praise and encouragement. People expressed their relief and gratitude that the center was taking concrete steps to address the issue, and many applauded her transparency and commitment to change. The message resonated with Marcus deeply. He felt a quiet pride, knowing that his story had sparked this renewed commitment to the center's mission, transforming a moment of hurt into an opportunity for growth and positive change. As the days passed, the Respect Our Elders movement continued to grow, with individuals and organizations alike rallying around the call for inclusivity and respect in community spaces. Schools, churches, and even local businesses shared messages of support, some pledging to hold similar discussions on empathy and respect in their own spaces. The ripple effect was tangible, a testament to the power of shared stories and collective action. Mina, who had initially posted the video, found herself at the center of this movement, receiving messages from people thanking her for bringing attention to such an important issue. She hadn't anticipated the impact her recording would have, but she was heartened to see that her small action had ignited something larger than herself. Her admiration for Marcus grew tenfold as she watched the outpouring of support, and she felt proud to be part of a community that valued resilience and compassion. Paul, too, felt the weight of the movement as he continued to manage the day-to-day operations of the center. He noticed a renewed sense of purpose among the staff, many of whom approached him to discuss the changes Emma had proposed. Some expressed regret for not speaking up sooner, while others were eager to participate in the upcoming discussions, hoping to contribute to the center's growth and improvement. The momentum sparked by Marcus's story brought new faces to the center as well. Individuals who had been hesitant to visit before, but were now drawn by the commitment to inclusivity and community. Parents brought their children, young people volunteered their time, and elderly patrons arrived, encouraged by the promise of a place where they would be welcomed without question. For Marcus, this surge of support reaffirmed his faith in the community he had devoted his life to. He watched as people of all ages and backgrounds came together, united by a shared vision of respect and acceptance. The power of their collective voices was a reminder that change was not only possible, but inevitable when people stood together. One evening, Marcus received a handwritten note from a young man named Isaiah who had seen the video online. The note read, "Dear Mr. Taylor, I wanted to reach out and thank you for what you did. Your story moved me because I know what it feels like to be excluded, to feel like you don't belong. Seeing someone like you stand up for yourself, and for all of us who have ever felt small or invisible, means more than words can say. Thank you for showing us what it means to have courage and grace. You've inspired me to believe that my voice matters too. With respect and gratitude, Isaiah." As Marcus read the note, he felt a quiet warmth spread through him. It was moments like these, small gestures, words from the heart, that reminded him of why he had dedicated himself to this work. He had spent years building a place where people could find acceptance, and now in this unexpected way, the center had become a symbol of hope and resilience for people beyond its walls. With each passing day, the number of Respect Our Elders movement continued to grow, its message expanding to encompass not only respect for elders, but respect for everyone who entered community spaces. Marcus's story became part of a larger conversation about the values that should define such spaces, values that went beyond rules and protocols to touch on the essence of what it meant to be human. Through it all, Marcus remained humble, touched by the support and determined to continue his work. He knew that this movement, though sparked by his story, was about something far greater than himself. It was about the power of community, the importance of standing up for one another, and the enduring impact of kindness and empathy. As the evening's celebration wound down and guests began to say their goodbyes, a peaceful calm settled over the community center. The lights in the main hall softened, and the sounds of laughter and conversation gradually faded into the background. Emma found herself lingering, her gaze following the last groups of people who had come to celebrate the values of inclusivity and community that the center embodied. She felt a deep sense of pride and purpose, a recognition that tonight had not only honored Marcus's legacy, but had also redefined the center's commitment to unity and respect. Nearby, Marcus stood quietly, observing the scene with a reflective expression. The past days had been transformative, filled with moments of struggle, resilience, and growth. Tonight had shown him the power of standing up for one's beliefs and the remarkable strength that comes from a supportive community. In his heart, Marcus felt both a humble gratitude and a renewed resolve. As the last of the guests left, Emma walked over to Marcus, and the two of them made their way to a quieter corner of the hall. There, away from the crowd, they could finally sit together in quiet reflection, sharing a moment of peace after an emotional few days. Marcus settled into his chair, feeling the weight of the evening lift from his shoulders as he looked around the hall. The place he had spent so much of his life building nurturing, and watching grow. "Thank you, Emma," he said softly, his voice filled with warmth and sincerity. "For everything. Tonight was more than I ever expected. Seeing everyone here, supporting the center and its mission, it reminded me why I started all of this." Emma turned to him, her expression one of admiration and respect. "It's us who should be thanking you, Marcus," she replied. "This center wouldn't exist without you. It's your legacy that we're honoring. And it's because of people like you that this place has become a sanctuary for so many. I promise you, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it remains that way." Marcus nodded, his heart swelling with a quiet pride. "That means a lot to me, Emma. I've always believed that this place was more than just a building. It's a part of the community, a place where anyone can walk in and feel like they belong, no matter who they are or where they come from." They sat in a comfortable silence for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts. For Marcus, the center represented years of dedication, moments of joy, and countless stories shared. It was a place that held memories of his younger days, when he had poured himself into building something that could outlast him, something that would continue to serve the community for generations. For Emma, it was a place that had shaped her and given her purpose, a place where she had grown and learned, guided by Marcus's wisdom and kindness. "Tonight was important," Emma continued thoughtfully, "but it's just the beginning. There's so much work to be done, so many conversations that still need to happen. I want to make sure that everyone who steps into this center feels respected and valued. We owe that to the community and to you." Marcus placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, offering a reassuring smile. "I have no doubt that you'll keep that promise, Emma. I see the passion you have for this place, and I know you'll continue to carry it forward. And if you ever need help, you know where to find me." They both laughed softly, sharing a moment of understanding and mutual respect. Emma felt a sense of relief, knowing that Marcus would continue to be there, guiding her and the center with the same dedication that had made him a pillar of the community. She knew that she was not alone in this journey, and that thought gave her the strength to continue championing the center's mission. As they sat together, Marcus reflected on the unexpected impact of his experience. The support he had received, not only from those within the center, but from people across the city and beyond, had shown him the powerful effect that one person's voice could have. The Respect Our Elders movement had become a symbol of resilience, a reminder that every individual has the power to stand up for what is right. And he realized that his story was now part of something much larger than himself. A collective call for compassion, unity, and respect that would ripple through the community and inspire change far beyond the walls of the center. When the time finally came for Marcus to leave, he rose from his seat, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. As he walked toward the door, Emma joined him, and they paused at the threshold, taking one last look at the center, their shared creation and legacy. "Take care, Emma," Marcus said, his voice carrying the weight of a lifetime's worth of gratitude and pride. "I'll be seeing you soon." "Good night, Marcus," Emma replied, her voice soft and filled with admiration. "And thank you for everything." With one last nod, Marcus stepped outside, feeling the cool evening air fill his lungs. As he looked around, he saw the familiar streets and faces of the neighborhood he had loved and served for so many years. But tonight, everything felt different. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a deep, quiet assurance that his work was far from over. His story had sparked a movement, a collective resolve to honor the values of inclusivity, respect, and compassion, and he knew that he would continue to be a part of that journey, supporting and guiding his community in every way he could. Final message. As Marcus walked home, his mind filled with thoughts of the future, he couldn't help but feel that his story was part of a larger tapestry. A tapestry woven with the threads of countless voices, each one standing up against injustice, each one contributing to a world where everyone could feel seen and valued. His journey, once personal, had become a beacon of hope and resilience, inspiring others to stand up and make their own voices heard. The story of Marcus, Emma, and the community center is a testament to the enduring power of unity and courage. When faced with discrimination, the unwavering resolve of one individual can spark a broader change, creating ripples that inspire society to come together against injustice. Marcus's story is not only his own, it is a reminder to everyone that every voice raised for justice strengthens the call for a more compassionate world. As the lights of the community center faded behind him, Marcus felt a deep sense of peace. He knew that his legacy would live on, not only within the walls of the center, but within the hearts of everyone who had been touched by his story. And in that quiet moment, he understood that the center was more than just a building. It was a living, breathing testament to the strength of community, the power of kindness, and the limitless potential of love and resilience. With each step, Marcus walked forward into the future, carrying with him the knowledge that his journey was far from over and that his story would continue to inspire others, igniting hope and compassion in the hearts of generations to come.